Merci. Um, wow. Well, thanks. So I'm a substitute moderator to be exact, and in my spare time I work at Telefilm Canada, project financing, and as to follow up on Pierre Emmanuel panel, I guess we were about to talk about the experience of co-producing. But first, let me or let the chance to my co-panelists to present themselves a bit from starting with Julia.
My name's Julia. Oh. My name's Julia Rosenberg. I'm a producer in Toronto. What else?
That was short.
Films that I've worked on. I've worked on films. I've done several co-productions. I had the great fortune of working with a really fantastic producer in Canada named Robert Lantos, and together we did some films like that you probably wouldn't think are co-productions, like the Annette Bening movie Being Julia. I wasn't as involved in a more recent one he did with Italy called Barney's Version, which was also a co-production.
Roberto, I'm Italian, but I work for a European fund called Eurimage. I'm the director of Eurimage that stimulates co-production, so sounds like I'm in the right place today.
Absolutely.
I'm Andrea Paris. I'm a producer in Italy, Rome-based, and I used to work before being a producer in Film Italia. This is the company that does the promotion of Italian film worldwide. That's it.
Thank you. So, as we mentioned, this panel is about the experience of co-production, the crafting of a co-production. So, I guess as we're going to take a case study being White Shadows, the title of the film, that is currently in development, let's start by introducing the project and say where it comes from. And I guess it's an Italian, it emanates from Italy. So,
Okay, please, I beg your pardon for my English, but I barely speak Italian, so for me it's really effort. I must say that just a little introduction. I met Fabio, that is here, Fabio Molo, the director, when I used to work in Film Italia in Cinecittà Luce, and at that moment, 4 years ago, I was head of a development project, and I meet again Fabio right before the distribution of his first film, The South Is Nothing, and we discussed the possibility to work together on a project. Seeing that Fabio used to, so you studied outside, you studied in UK and United States, and it's almost mother tongue English. So, and seeing that my experience in Film Italia was important for me. It was important for an Italian because the problem in Italy is that we have a basic huge block barrier that is the language. I mean, we do such beautiful films, not any of them has the possibility to travel, to reach audience worldwide, except some festivals. So we just wanted to do something together, and we wanted to do a film basically in English. With English spoken actors somewhere, but not in Italy. He actually had an idea, so we started to develop, and we started to think someone to put on board the project. And I knew Julia through a friend of mine, Domenico Procacci, that is a very famous producer in Italy. And he co-produced with Canada two films.
He did Silk with François Gérard, okay, and he did Barney's Version. I think those two.
Yeah, and so he suggests to contact Julia, and that's it. We talked, we shared the project, and we start a new development. I think that Julia can talk English. No, I mean, all the technical issues is up to her because I don't know how to explain well. Let's say that the important thing is now just want to tell. I know Florentina's gone. Pier Manuel is gone. No, just tell that there was a really good experience to be part of the co-production village in Paris, run by Pier Manuel. We really wanted to do a rehearsal of the project. We really wanted to understand if the receiving of the project by foreign distributor, sales agent, because it's not so usual to have Italian project spoken in English with English actors located outside of Italy. Usually these kind of films are genre films, are horror films that are for the Asian market. There are specific markets. And the project was really, really well received. The co-production forum, and actually we were surprised because on Variety there was a short news where the project was one of the best projects selected and reviewed by the people that attended. And so then I met Julia. I was telling you, I met Julia, and that's it. Now Julia's in charge of everything. she and the only thing that I want to tell that is true. That in Italy we have we had a really strong decrease of the public funds subsidies. So as Pier Manuel told, the only way to finance a film are regional funds, co-productions, and stuff like this. I must say that we didn't choose to do a co-production because we did need the money. We really wanted to go outside. We really want to go outside. Then now, of course, the fact to find the money is an issue. The fact to propose to the Italian audience a film that is that of Italian as from Italy as just the producer and the director, because that's it, is not so easy. But we really wanted to go outside. Am I wrong? No, do you agree? Okay. So this is the intention of the project. Now it's up to Julia that will talk for 2 hours. Explaining the story and stuff like this.
Okay, so Andrea sent me the script, just the sort of the sequence of events. Andrea sent me the script, and at the end of November, but I was away for most of December, and then I read it in January, and I really liked it. I thought it had a lot of potential. I liked talking to Andrea, and then I met with Fabio in Berlin, because it was important to me as well, given the fact that it was going to shoot here and be in English and be developed further with Ryan Redford, who's sitting behind over there, who's working on the screenplay, that we get along, basically. So we met, we got along, and then we closed in Cannes.
Yes.
So in Cannes we closed, and we've now started to develop. As I said, Ryan has come on board, and Fabio and I just did 5 days in Northern Ontario with support of the OMDC's location scouting program, I guess, and we visited locations, because our story is basically 3 people in the middle of nowhere. So geographically, Canada's a really great place. As Fabio said, really interestingly, it's like in Canada is one of the last places where the natural world really can feel overwhelming vis-a-vis the human population. One can't really say the same thing in Europe. And for our story, it's essential that the audience believes that these people could never have seen anyone else in their lives.
As we speaking about the let's say the co-production being a venture or a meeting, like for a lot of advantage, like financial and all that, and geographical and those things. But it's also, as you were mentioning before the meeting, it's a meeting of 2 culture. It's a meeting of 2 kind of thinking about like the movies or and the potential audience that's going to see that. So could you a bit describe, like, was there a kind of a clash between, like, on the creative process or the content process of how to tell that kind of story that could not happen for obvious reason in Italy, but in North America?
Yes, absolutely. Just a quick introduction, then I'll let you talk. Yes. Another important fact is, of course, we started thinking a kind of a genre film, a psychological drama, but I must say that in Italy the screenwriters doesn't have the same skills as Canadian, North American, or UK. But I'm not saying that they are not good. They are really good. If you imagine, I mean, the Italian cinema of the 50s and the 60s, and the screenwriters made, I mean, half of the best, the masterpiece of the worldwide cinema. We just found that was important to involve, along with Julia, another screenwriter from another culture, but from another cinematographic culture. I mean, we want to do a psychological drama, and we really want someone that has the skills, because for the language, because it's coming from North America, where there is another market and other audience. And I think that we done well, because the script really improved, and there is another story. It's more. It's really beautiful.
In my experience, I was sort of trying to talk about this earlier, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and we've been talking about it. So excuse me if I'm not entirely clear, but it seems that languages have their own traditions of storytelling. By that I mean, like, some are more action and demonstrative driven, and some are more reflective and symbolic. And in some languages, you can sort of express intention through symbols, and in others, that expression of intention through symbols feels heavy-handed and pretentious. So when you're working on a co-production and the final language is in English, for instance, I think it's a really great idea to ensure that you do an early collaboration and development with someone who writes in English, who reads in English, who watches English language films, who has a sort of inherent understanding of the architecture, I guess, the narrative architecture of telling stories in English, or if you're doing it in French or in Italian. And we're lucky because Ryan has come on board, and he's a great writer. And also Fabio has studied in the States and studied in the UK, and so he's already aware of and open to that type of storytelling.
And Roberto, leading Eurimage, that is like at the center of many, many co-production ventures. So, and considering what Pierre-Emmanuel was saying that because of the decrease of the capacity of each country, and co-production become like the natural venue, but it doesn't always, or in the past, it was not always produce natural co-production. So, what do you see these days?
Yes, I sort of agree with what Pierre-Emmanuel was saying before. I think the financial crisis in Europe obliged somehow producers, especially in Italy, for instance, where there was not a great tradition for co-productions, to think how to make the film possible not only for the national market, but also for the international market in terms of financing, because they couldn't find money sufficiently in their own territory, but also make it more profitable, and meaning that the project is going to travel across borders, and therefore is going to be more sexy for the financiers. It is true that we are actually overwhelmed with projects right now. We nearly doubled the number of applications in 3 years, which is a huge problem for us in terms of administration and overheads. On the one hand, we're happy with this because the very first idea of co-production is stimulating cooperation between producers coming from different countries, and the project does not lose its identity in terms of culture, in terms of storytelling, but has the ability to travel. And the exercise that those two are trying to make is exactly what we in Eurimage are looking for. So the project originated as an Italian project. However, in order for that story to be understood and perceived and appreciated and have some sort of empathy from the audience towards the film, you need to have in the development phase a cooperation. What we don't like is films that are entirely developed in one territory, then the producer realizes that he or she cannot find sufficient financing in his own territory, and then fishes out, some partners somewhere, and you have an actor that comes from the other territory, because otherwise the minority fund does not want to invest in the film, and you can tell, you can see it on the screen, and that is the worst case scenario, because a good co-production, as we were saying before, is a co-production that is seen on the financing plan, but you cannot see it on the screen. Yes, what Pierre-Emmanuel was saying is I agree with that, and I agree with you. The trend is to make real co-production from the very early stage, not only for financial reasons, but for also the will, like Andrea was saying before, of making a film that will travel.
I mean, I go to a lot of these markets, thankfully, and people are approaching me as a Canadian co-producer, and the writer and director are from another country, and I'm like, well, it's hard to do that. It's hard to do a genuine co-production, and not just a financial co-production using the treaties if there's not a significant role for a Canadian. All of the co-productions that I've done or started to develop, I'm always thinking about, well, if this is going to be a co-production, because I'm doing something that's set in Israel, for instance. So my writer is Canadian, but I'll probably find a director from Israel because it makes sense. It's part of the creative package. And what we used to call them Euro puddings way back when. That, you want to do a co-production, you don't want to do
That's
a Euro
the
pudding.
past.
Yeah, that's the past.
Yeah, Western that with one of the cowboys speak with the Marseillais accent was quite funny. I saw that in the past. but to keep the authenticity of the project, but still mixing the culture. I mean, is Canada is well perceived in Europe on those matters? Because we got a lot of talent. We have 54 treaties. I mean, I guess
We invented it, didn't we? Kind of.
I guess we invented it.
I'm not sure, actually. But since we are in Canada, we say yes.
But there is, I suppose, a lot of co-production within European countries, that is less difficult than to come to Canada. So, beside geographical needs for the storytelling, what is the other advantage you find from Canadian, if you were to work with Canada or to were to make a co-production?
Is that me?
Yep.
Well, there are several advantages, in my opinion. Canada, even though geographically is in North America, traditionally the way you make film, not only from a purely legal point of view, you were talking about treaties, you guys have funds like we have in Europe. But I think also the sensitivity of the audience towards a certain kind of cinema is, we like to think that is European. What I'm trying to say is what defines a European film is not the territorialization, because you may ask yourself what is in common between a Portuguese film and a Russian film, or a Turkish film and a Scottish film. It is the way stories are told, the approach to filmmaking. And Canadians, the way we see in Europe, are closer to us, despite geography, than to the US, for a certain type of cinema, at least. That is the reason why Eurimage is now thinking to open up to non-European countries. Actually, we are not thinking, we have decided to do it, and the legal text, the statutory text of the fund have been changed in order to allow membership from non-European countries, and Canada is certainly the example, the country that we are thinking of when we were thinking of opening up the fund to non-European countries. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Canada will for sure join Eurimage. This is not up to me to decide. The national authorities have been alerted about this, or the Telefilm Canada colleagues have been, we've been in touch with them, so we've been talking about this. Then it's going to be more of a political question that flies over my head, as you can imagine, because culture sometimes is the prize for, bargaining powers in international politics. So I don't know if if the Canadians are interested in joining Eurimage only because it's good for their producers, or there will be something in exchange in international trade and so on. So let's see what happens in the future. But Canada and Israel, as you were saying, Julia, before, are the countries we were thinking of when opening up the fund. Geography has today no relevance at all.
So it's and speaking, still continue on the main topic, being crafting. And by the way, if anybody have a question in the audience, feel free to ask at any moment.
I knew this was going to happen. I have no idea. No idea because what I had to do from my side has been done. So all the legal work that is necessary. Pierre-Emmanuel was saying this before. Like official corporation is a lot of legal work at the basis. So that has been done. Now, there are so many questions that the Canadians and the Israeli or whoever wants to join Image will have to deal with, like where is the money coming from in order to pay the contribution that the country has to pay to Image? Is this going to be taken away from the national fund? Hopefully not. Is it going to be put on top of the financing resources that are already devoted to national and co-production in Canada? So all that has to be discussed by the Canadians, and they will decide if and when. We basically unlock the door. The door is open. It's up to them to step in now.
It's certainly very interesting to have a partner like Image for Canada because it's opened up a lot of doors. But coming back to crafting, Julia and Andrea, on your own respective country, was there a difficulty to fund the present step, like the development of your project? I mean, being a co-production.
Yes. I must say that the first time that me and Fabio presented the project to Recinema, I must say Recinema is the major broadcaster in Italy, and actually is the only, we say this, the only financier, public financier, also with the Minister of Culture. They financed also the first film of Fabio. They are really curious about the career of Fabio. But I must say that when we present the second project, that was completely in another way. I must say that Fabio started his career with his first film in Toronto last year. I don't remember if I already told it before. I mean, the international premiere of this film, The South Is Nothing, was in Toronto last year. So the people from RAI started to say, but why are you going to do a film in English with English actors? You are betraying your roots. You're maybe maybe you have to wait to do another film, then you establish your career, then you can move. So in Italy there is still this I don't know to say this
Provincialism?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So we forced a little bit this block. Of course, we are aware of the fact that we need the money from them. So we prepared, and I think that we convinced them about the fact that there is a good chance for Fabio, is a good chance for the Italian cinema. We are not going to ask a lot of money to them, so they can be relaxed about it. But it's not easy. It was not easy. It's not easy at the moment to. We have to convince any party involved, like distributors. Like next week, we will have the audition of the Minister of Culture for the public fund, and it's bureaucracy. I mean, there is a lot of people. They changed the commission people now. Let's hope that they're younger. Maybe they are more open to understand. But the English language, the foreign language for an Italian film is still a block for the giving of the money. So they are now. We have now a new Minister of Culture that. Is improving the co-production, wants the youngs to go outside, maybe because if we go outside, it's not a problem for him because he don't have to put the money. Maybe, I don't know. But so we are confident that the next week when we are going to do the audition, we will bring not only what we got from Italy in terms of money, but the most important thing for me, and we are very proud. I'm very proud, is what we got from outside. For me, as Italian producer, the reviews and the receiving of the project from the director of the Sundance Film Festival, of Pierce handling of the film, from Julia as a co-producer. I mean, there are all papers that that we will bring at the audition, and we will say, okay, we are in a big country called Europe. In Europe, there are a lot of language. There are other countries that does films in English as well. There is Canada that is a major partner for Italy, for Europe. We are going to do this film outside. We want to do in English with English actors. Let's hope they'll say go out
But
the room.
on that, and before we get to you, Julia, but Roberto, I mean, the part of Eurimage that is funding development is media, I guess. That's that,
Yes, development is essentially in the media program, but Eurimage is giving development awards for developing co-productions. And we do that in markets like the one that Pierre-Emmanuel was telling about in Rotterdam. For instance, there is an award given by Eurimage for the development of a co-production. So that exists.
and what is there any regulation or provincialism that's going to mean about the language? Because it's true, in Europe there's a ton of languages. So.
No, in Eurimage we have no problem whatsoever with language. The language is chosen by the producer will choose the language that fits better to the project. And in some countries, Italy is one of those, but it's not the only one. In some countries in Europe, production is linked to language because there is the two facets of the same question, basically. There is a certain prejudice in Italy for non-Italian language films, but since they are going to improve co-production, that is going to hopefully to change somehow. But in France as well, for some funds, the French language is an obligation. It's not the majority of the funds, however, it exists. I think there was a question in the audience.
Yeah, actually, the question before about the development money from Italy. Did you receive development money to get a Canadian writer to write from Italian money?
No. Canadian development funds.
Okay, yeah.
Canadian development funds are available to fund Canadian producers to hire Canadian writers to write in English or in French.
Yeah, but I understood you were applying for money in Italy as well, so I was wondering if you succeeded.
We applied for money for the production.
Not development.
Yeah, no, we develop I develop on my own with Fabio, and then we closed the agreement with Julia, and through Julia we brought the Canadian writer. So.
A question for Julia. I'm shooting my next movie in Germany and Ireland, and I get my 30% in soft money from Germany and about 28% from Ireland. Is there any reason, number one, to turn that into a co-production? And number two, is there any reason to kind of, because I'm a Canadian citizen, tie in as a Canadian co-production? Is there funds available? Is there more money for me there?
I don't know. But are you the producer? Are you the writer? Are you the director? Producer. And what are the nationalities of the writer and the director?
Canadian.
Well,
no, German director, sorry.
German director and Canadian writer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on the surface of it, then you have, in terms of the creative core team, it would be smart for you to look at doing a Canadian co-production. I've done Canada, Germany. The cultures are sort of similar when it comes to how we approach paperwork.
But where does my rebate come from there? I'd have to do post here, or if I'm shooting only
the way that I remember co-productions basically is that the percentage of financing is equal to the spend is equal to the creative participation. There are always small deviations, but if you're considering a project or considering mounting a project as a co-production, think of it that way. So if 50% of your financing is from Canada, then 50% of the creative core should be Canadian, and 50% of your spend needs to be Canadian. That's the easiest way to begin thinking about it.
And that can include post, obviously.
That's part of your budget, yeah, of course.
Okay.
And I guess if you at Telefilm we're managing all those treaties, so yeah, no, it's okay. But no, I'm the moderator. I'm not asking answering
can I do
questions.
a follow-up question on that, just for Julia as well? I mean, I always found I'm a Canadian producer, but I moved to Munich partially because I found the Telefilm system, the point system, so difficult to, you know, I want to choose whatever actors I want, no matter where they are from in the world. And in Canada, we have to sometimes choose a Canadian actor.
Well, get equity. I mean, I don't know. It's like these funds are partially, they have a cultural remit. I find I mean, I'm going to sound like a total brown nose here, but I actually
come
think...
to Italy.
Oh,
so
go to
you
Italy.
come
Yeah.
to Italy. So you will see.
What do you mean by
telefilm.
get equity? Go outside telefilm.
I'm just saying, if you don't want funding that has its part of its mandate the support and protection of a culture in which they say we want to support our Canadian actors or Canadian writers, then don't go for that money. And when it comes to the paperwork, what the funds usually ask of you, you generate anyway as a producer. Am I going to have my chain of title closed before I shoot my film? Yeah. Am I going to have a budget? Yeah. Am I going to have a schedule? So the list may seem long, but but it's true. No, it's true. Yes, I have actually. I've done Eurimage, and Eurimage's lists are shorter than Telefilm's lists. And when I've even worked with Germans, they're like, "Oh my God, there's so much paper." But the reality is, like, I want to sign deal memo with my actors. Like, I want to sign co-production agreement. I want to sign distribution deals. So there's actually nothing that's required of us except, you know, I'm even want to do a synopsis. I'm going to use a synopsis to sell my project. So there's really nothing that's asked of me as a producer to provide on paper that I don't want to see generated anyway.
I didn't pay her.
No, and as a
Me neither.
Canadian co-producer who's done lots of things, it's actually a wonderful mechanism by which the two parties can work together, because it means that, you know, if everything is papered, then everything is papered between both parties. So it's a good protective mechanism for both producers. You ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, my producer, my co-producer, Julia Rosenberg.
He's going to kill me because it's not the same in Italy, but it'll be fine.
Any other question? Yes, down there.
Well, I've written my first film, and the action takes place all over the place. It takes place in Ukraine. It takes place in France. It takes place in Switzerland, and even is Trieste still part of Italy, or is it now part of France? I mean,
It is still part
yeah. So
until next war.
my production experience, aside from a big 5-minute movie that I made, is in producing concerts. And when I talk co-production and concerts, is a much simpler process. I find either a a company that's putting on a concert that fits the mandate of my group, which was Jewish Music Toronto. If they were doing, it didn't matter whether they were Jewish performers or not. If they were producing Jewish music of whatever genre, then we would offer ourselves to come in as co-producers. Then we would split the proceeds. So when, let's say I make my big movie with all these different countries, when the revenue comes in, how does that get split?
Well, I guess in normal circumstance, you will sign a co-production agreement with your partners that will define not only that what the certification bureau is going to ask, like for what's the split of the creative element and all that, but I mean your partner and you will want to define in advance what's going to be the split of the territories or split the territories or the revenue from those territories, depending on the deal you have. But it's quite a normal agreement. Let's say it's all co-production work like that. So you sign a deal.
Yeah, normally treaties say that the revenues are split proportionally to the financing of the film. It's like if you and your friend decide to buy a car, and the car costs €1 million, very expensive car, and you pay 600 and he pays 400. Well, the revenues are going to be split 60-40. That's now how you define territories, how each territory is worth. That's a different story. That's a matter of negotiation. But treaties want producers to split revenues proportionally to the financial contribution to the film.
Absolutely. Normally, you got like Canadian partner keep Canada, and the foreign partner keep his national territory, and they split the world according to that percentage of co-production deal. So, I would be curious.
Well, Canadian territory is very small,
Yeah.
so it's it's true. So it would normally make sense that the Canadian producer would take Canada and the German producer would take Germany, and then you'd split the rest of the world based on your co-producing percentages. But it's not often a fair split. That's all.
No, but you may have a different split from bigger territories. I mean, it's a negotiation. The other aspect that might be interesting, because Andrea was speaking that he received support from Italy from a broadcaster, from an Italian broadcaster, if I understand,
Yes.
for a foreign language Italian film.
Yes, we is not. We have a generic support on the film. In terms of the amount of the money, we have to wait a couple of months because they have the new budget. So it depends. We have an agreement on the project. Of course, for what concern the amount of money that we will get, the issue is how the film will be with a major cast will be. Because in Italy it makes the difference. I mean, if you put a big name in the cast, of course. As everywhere, but
Here too.
but for us and for our project in Italy, it's double necessary. We are obliged to not obliged, but would be better to put a name and we just have three roles, so it's not a big treasure. 3 could be a big name, and then depends more or less on that. But in any case, Rai Cinema. I think that 99% will be involved in the project, in the production phase of the film.
But it's going to be an exploitation in Italy of a dub version, then.
Yes, but this is another issue. We got a separate panel about the dubbing in Italy, because as Roberto knows, is one of the big issues now during these months, because. We have the best, how do you say, dubber? No, the people that does dubbing. Dubbing, okay. We are actors that we have. But in Italy, I think there are just, in all Italy, there are just like official 45 cinema that does films with the subtitles. Official. Then you have the Cine Studio or something like this, but like official screens there are just 45 in all Italy that are and it is incredible. If you think in Rome, how many are just one? In Rome, there are just one screen that does the film in original language with subtitles. So you can imagine. Of course, the film will be dubbed in Italy.
Quebec is not dissimilar, right? Quebec, there's dubbing in Quebec as well, which is
Yes,
supported by a national subsidy. And
Yeah,
they'll
but
sometimes dub French films too, no?
Yes, but there is regulation about like unions, but like the actors' union will
But
require.
also in Italy, has strong unions.
But it speaks to the, let's say, when it's going to be time to finance the production of the project, and like in general, and it's maybe more for Roberto the question, but aren't you afraid, even if we want to keep the authenticity of the nationalistic director of the film, but everything's going to end up to be in English to make sure that it's financed and you get star system and all that, and lose a bit of the national flavor, let's say, that is attached?
To the best of my knowledge, a regulation at the beginning in Image was obliging the producers to shoot the film in the language of the co-producing countries, and that gives absurd results, meaning that the producers know best what is good for the film, and the choice of shooting the film in Italian or in English is a choice that determines completely the identity of the film. Think of the actors. You know, having actors that act in English in Italy, it narrows down like basically nearly to nobody the casting process. So from the point of view of if you want to make real co-productions and if you want to make the money available for producers in order for them to do the best film possible, let them choose. That's our policy.
I'm just thinking it's an interesting question from you, because in terms of Quebec, it's a real consideration, and I would think that in Quebec, for instance, I'm not Quebecoise, but the producers there do sort of self-regulate that because they are attached to their culture. So they are not just presenting films that are in English, and English language films are what, 70% of the market in Europe. They're also going to want to do films in Quebecois because that's where they come from, and that's those stories they also want to tell. And there's also market in Quebec.
But I guess it's probably the same thing in every country. They got your local success, and you got success that are more international.
I don't think that the language multiplies necessarily the possibility for the film to travel. There are films that are in Polish that we supported, for instance. Recently, there is an example I'm thinking of that was successful, was sold all over. Now, shooting that film in English would have changed radically the identity of the film. However, I think when the funds impose rules that oblige producers and directors to go towards one direction instead of another, it's a bit too much, in my opinion. It's an abuse to their creativity. And I understand that for some funds, and in Quebec, it goes beyond cinema, I suppose. It's more a question of identity and so on. It makes more sense. However, in Europe, the problem is multiplied by how many are we? 36 in our image. So imposing those rules would make things even more complicated. And the approach is, on the contrary, to deregulate and create an integrated market. So,
as an example, Fabio, how many festivals has your film played? And is it in Italian or is it in Calabrese, your film? I don't even know. Not in Calabrese. So it's in a regional dialect of Italian, and like a lot, like 50, like a lot. So you're right. The film can travel, but it might not necessarily be in a commercial market. It's still in a sort of festival market or circuit market.
But think of Gomorra. Gomorra, as an Italian, I had to read the subtitles because I couldn't understand it. So, I mean, as Italian as you can get it. So language is linked to the identity of the film.
To the storytelling of the film, I
But,
agree.
I mean, further on, I mean, in the process of financing the film, and you will need that market input, like market money. If it's in Calabrese, I don't know how many Calabrese distributors there is that are ready to put some NMG in the financing of the film. So, is it condemning producer to always go to the more like the obvious one that's been in English? I mean,
I don't know. I agree with Roberta. It's not the fact of the language that you use. For our project, as I said, we choose English not to just to reach the major audience. It's not so easy to explain the story, but as Julia told us, there are three peoples that think they are the only ones still alive on the earth, and they are in a bush somewhere in the world. Specifically, I don't know if we are going to tell that there is Canada at the end or not, but of course you will see immediately that is North America, okay? And so the fact of the language is something a little bit automatic. The funny thing, the first time we were talking with Fabio, we said, okay, after the meetings with people of Rescinema, because the first answer that they gave to us, say, why don't you set the film in Italy? And so we start to think the film located in Calabria or in Puglia or on beautiful islands in Italy. So these people, I don't know, for me, maybe for you, it's not, you don't have the same idea, but for me, it's Italy. I have the brividi, come si dice?
Shiver.
Yeah, because if I think that a film like this in Italy, with Italian actors in Italian, will be absolutely not accepted, both by the international market and the Italian market, the distributors. So this is the reason, because we want to go somewhere outside. And the English language, of course, was we chose because it's the universal language, the most important.
And Fabio, studied in English and speaks English and
Yes,
identifies with
absolutely.
English too. So it's an
Absolutely.
unusual situation in that our director is pretty bilingual.
But if you had to pitch the project to me and I was in a market, in one of Pierre Emmanuel's market, I would ask you, are the people Italian? If they are Italian and they, the backdrop is Italian, then it makes sense to me to be in Italy. If they're not Italian, who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares? I mean, it's the story that is important. It's not their passport.
Exactly.
I don't know if I explain myself.
Yeah.
It must be coherent. It must be, the audience must relate to the story, not to
where they come
exactly
from.
where they are, unless the backdrop is important.
Yeah.
And here, when we went on our scout, we met some people. We met this woman who was homeschooled with there were 4 siblings in this room in the winters. And then, we talked to someone else who sort of had a similar experience in rural Nova Scotia. And in Canada, this notion that you can sort of be raised in a house and not see anybody and survive the winters. And I know it sounds extreme, but we've met people who've had similar experiences. And that authenticity of a Canadian experience really helps our story, and you can't say the same for Italy. It's just Europe's very crowded. It's a different place.
Well, especially if you're in Puglia, you can see that it's the seaside. You can see it. You cannot pretend it's South Africa. I mean, it's.
And it's it's like you think, oh, the rest of your life there, it's okay, Puglia. In the bush in northern Canada with mosquitoes and it's not as nice. I mean, it's awesome, but it's different.
So in the venue for let's say I'm an emerging producer and I want to make it my first co-production and all that. So I could go to Rotterdam, like what somebody mentioned a bit earlier. But in Canada, there's few venues. I mean, there is Strategic Partners in Halifax. There is at TIFF here. There's something, and maybe at other bigger festival in Canada. But you, Julia, as a Canadian producer, I mean, do you think there's a lack of those networking activities in here? Is there too many, or there should be organized differently, or?
I think that there are plenty. There are lots and lots of co-production markets. My experience is that you can find good partners there, but also just attending markets. And when I was first going to markets, I would pick a country and think, okay, I want to get to know producers from this country. And I would go to their party and I would take meetings with them. And even if I didn't have a project to partner on, I would just sort of get to know the production communities in different countries so that should a project arise that would be a relevant co-production, I would have someone to talk to. So I think all of these organized markets are really helpful, but also, as you're traveling around and presenting yourself in different markets around the world, it's a good idea to make that part of your festival strategy or market strategy, I think.
And the preparation, I mean, that Pierre Emmanuel was talking about, to be there, prepared, to be...
Yeah, but even if you don't have a project, is what I'm saying. And even if, even if you don't have a project to do with Germany right now, but you may say, I'm going to Berlinale, I want to meet German producers, or I'm going, this time in Cannes, I want to really focus on Spanish producers. And you don't necessarily need to have a project to sort of just begin to have a dialogue and to talk about what it's like producing in each other's countries. It's always a good idea always to be thinking. In Canada, we always think about co-productions. We've been thinking about it for a really, really long time. So it's sort of normal that everyone I know who does what I do is building up a stable of potential partners around the world.
It's sure that Canada is a country, because we signed 54 treaties, a co-production country.
But even Marie-Pierre didn't put the information about Italy. But Italy has more or less the same number of. Is one of the major, the country with the larger number of bilateral treaties. I don't know if there are 54, but there are something 30, something like this. We have a lot of bilateral treaties. We don't use, but we have.
But actually, the one that Canada is using more is France and UK. Means that it's more than the vast majority are made with those two countries, and then Italy and Germany and Spain. But my question was more related to know the cinematographic of the other country, because I mean, it's sure that a ton of co-production are made for getting some money, getting the lack of financement. So I'm going to go somewhere else to get it. But I mean, if you want to have a mix of those culture for the benefit of the film or for the purpose of the film, I mean, it's sure in Canada we fund only French or Canadian language, French or English language, but. do you think there is a need to open up for other things, or at least just for reciprocity for other countries, for other language, or the knowledge of the somewhere else cinematography or way of making a movie?
I don't think I should be telling Telefilm Canada what to do. But however, the way I conceive public funds is money that is owned by the market. It's reserved for them. We are civil servants at the end of the day. That's what we do. And therefore, we have to make sure that the money that we have available is used in the best way possible. Now, that means that we have to listen to them and to understand where they want to go. If they want to co-produce with many other countries except France and the UK for reasons that are beyond language, I think money should be shaped, regulated in such a way that producers can profit and make the co-production they think they could be doing. That's what we do in Image. I know that money goes with ties in political terms, and especially at national level, politicians want to make sure that money is used for the identity of the country and all that. But take into consideration that we live in a globalized world where internet and the new technologies allow you to access any content in the world, thinking that you can still oblige your producers to canalize content towards a direction. It makes, in my opinion, no sense whatsoever, because the audience will not obey to that rule. And they will be making films that the audience probably will not be looking at. So if we want to be successful, they want to be successful, we want to be successful because we want the money to be as profitable as possible for everybody, I think we should be listening to the new trends and make sure that the money goes where they think should be going.
It's very wise. Yes?
I just maybe to pick up on that, I'm very glad it was brought up as a discussion point because the issue with thank you very much. The issue with it being either in English or French in terms of an investment from Telefilm, I can understand the motivation behind that, but it does limit, the opportunities for Canadian producers, perhaps to work with filmmakers from other parts of the world and to take advantage of the 54 treaties we have. For example, I'm working on an Indian project, and it makes sense in the context of the story to shoot it in Hindi. But then, trying to figure out a financing scenario where I can actually, try and make this project move forward is difficult as a Canadian producer, even though it's something I'm very drawn to. So maybe just a suggestion for consideration by Telefilm is the idea of perhaps allowing it for smaller budget projects, things at a certain budget level. It might be just an opportunity, I think, for that. Yes, for the idea of making films, Canadian producers working with filmmakers from any of those countries. So.
And we also have a considerably diverse population within our own country.
Well, yes,
and I think we're in Toronto, we're really proud of saying that it's the most multicultural city in the world, and so there's something to consider about how we this is just my personal opinion, how we define how we define our national cinema based on our population, which is sort of internationally distinguished as linguistically diverse and ethnically diverse. So
I agree. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I guess we're right on time. So thank you to my co-panelists. It was really agreeable.